to the GAB Talks by the Independent Press Award. I'm your hostess, Gabby Olzak. To participate in the 2025 Book Award competitions, please visit independentpressaward.com and NewYorkCityBigBookAward.com. On this episode of the GAB Talks, we'll be chatting with Dr. Susan Agbenoto, a dynamic voice in faith-based leadership, spiritual renewal, and personal transformation. Susan is the author of New Wine, A Journey into Refueling Your Life, a 2025 Independent Press Award distinguished favorite in the Christian category. In addition to being an award-winning author, Susan is a speaker in both religious and corporate forums, a lay pastor since 2013, and a seasoned investment professional with over 2 decades of experience. She obtained her Doctor of Ministry degree from the United Theological Seminary in Dayton, Ohio. Both her novels, New Wine and Restore Me, but Privately Please, inspire readers to pursue holistic well-being through the integration of faith, purpose, and practical wisdom. When she's not writing or working, Susan is passionate about traveling and experiencing the authenticity of other places. A devoted wife and mother of 2, Susan joins us from Central Florida. Congratulations, Susan. Welcome to the GAB Talks. It's so wonderful to see you again. We first met at book camp. Congratulations on your award.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for putting together such a wonderful program. I found that it was not just a refreshing time, but it was really helpful and nice because I did both the camp and the award ceremony. And I can tell you, Gabby, that it's really one of a kind. So thank you guys for putting such a great program together.
Well, thank you. Hopefully we'll see you next year at our annual book camp and award ceremony. And, all of you folks, you authors, you deserve to be celebrated. So again, thanks for joining us today, Susan. So let's dive right into it. I know our viewers are interested in hearing a little bit about you. Tell us about your journey, Susan. And you've been a pastor for almost a decade. What led you to writing this book about receiving God's new wine?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Again, it's really my pleasure to be here. And I have to start by saying that I stumbled into writing because I generally always note things down. I like to jot notes. I like to write down thoughts. I like to work through different things that I read and then rewrite it in my own words. But especially, as you know, my books are all faith-based. When I read the Bible, I do a lot of writing. So over the last 5 or 6 years, that's what I've been doing. I have journals upon journals. And if you look behind me in the corner, I have old journals that sometimes I have to go back and say, what did I write in, 2004? But when I was done with my doctorate program, I sat back and said, look, I've been able to write an entire dissertation over 100 pages from beginning to end. Why don't I take all the inspired writings that I've jotted down in different places and really start to piece them together? And I was surprised to find that I didn't have just one book, but I had 3 to 4 different books that I really had to sit down and bring together. So that's where New Wine was born, and also my second book, Restore Me. And I have a couple others that are coming out, but that's really the background for that. And with New Wine, being a pastor for some time, I noticed that sometimes people get stuck.
Yes.
We always have that phase of we're so excited about doing something new. And then the newness lasts for a while, and then all of a sudden, it drops off. And you feel like, okay, I'm just stuck in this place. I'm not moving forward. I'm not moving backward. And so I take the life of a grape and the different phases the grape goes through, and how with each step of life, there really is new wine that is being produced in you. And so, especially in those times where the stuck feeling is almost like I'm giving up feeling, the book is just telling you, hold on, don't give up. There's more coming. New wine is being produced in you.
Susan, you in your own words, you say that receiving new wine is experiencing your own personal revival. Was there a significant personal encounter or a moment in your life where you knew God was pouring out something new to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that that's happened to me at different times
Okay.
and different moments. And that's where I think that it's significant because the first time I experienced that was actually in a conference. And I just remembered that feeling of something different was happening inside of me.
Yeah.
A feeling of just being refreshed, being motivated, and just coming out of a mindset that said, where you are is where you're going to be. And I thought, no, 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 I can do more. I can go forward. I can press on more into God. I can actually help more people. And since that time, I can tell you that my life has been different, and my life has taken a different trajectory. But it's also because I was looking for something more. And
Yeah.
when I went to this conference, it provided me with that experience. And you don't have to go to a conference to experience that. But when you have that thing inside of you that says, I want more than this, that there's got to be more. I'm seeking some sort of, not, I don't want to say an experience per se, but I definitely want an encounter with the God who's greater than me. And when you enter into that place, you can see that your life really does begin to change because the human being is not made to just stay in one place. You're made to evolve and to grow from one level to another and to go from place to place. So when you're in a place for a long time, you actually don't feel great. But when you get to that place where you can tell, oh yeah, things are getting better, tomorrow's gonna be brighter. Oh, I can find myself doing this. I find myself doing that. It brings the personal fulfillment to your own life. And you can feel that I'm in a season of new wine. And I really
For
think
sure.
that a lot of people do experience that.
I'm sure you know this, Susan, because it's everywhere and because you're a Christian. It's a Jubilee year in Vatican City, and included in that, which I found the most exciting aspects, was the Jubilee of Youth, which actually, as you know, highlights the church's commitment to nurturing faith across generations. So I'd love your opinion on this, and do you think the church is in need of a revival, and how can young people be so much a part of that?
The church is in absolute need of a
Yeah,
revival.
I
And
agree.
I think that you can see pockets of it in
Mm.
different places, but it's not a worldwide sweep. And what we really need is a huge global revival. And it starts, like you rightfully said, with the younger ones,
Yes,
because the energy that a youth brings to the table, the passion, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. All you have to do is go on Instagram and you can see that nobody cares what you think about my picture. I'm posting it. And when you bring that into your faith, you'll see that there's such a radical um, encounter that brings and affects people. I mean, it's contagious. And I think that a lot of the younger ones or the youth, and I use that loosely because you can be 50 and still be young at heart. So, but
for sure.
a lot of youth, I think, are in a place where they either think church is boring or faith is about the do's and don'ts, and they're not interested in do's and don'ts. Or the thing that I hear the most is, well, Christians are hypocritical. They preach something and they do the total opposite. And you see
Right.
that right out of church, two Christians are
I hear
fighting,
that too.
that sort
Yeah.
of thing. But right. But then if you can sort of just look beyond that, because those are just people being people, whether they're Christians or not, people do what people do. But when you look beyond that and tap into the fact that we were created for more, we're created for a relationship with a being that just loves us, and we enter into true faith, not legalism, not do's and don'ts, but hey, God loves me and I love God. It just takes us into a really radical place, and then we want to help others, touch others, and that makes a big difference. So, no, I think the church does need a revival, and it's going to start with a lot of the younger ones just taking up that baton and running with it.
So, Susan, tell us about the concept of new wine. It emphasizes transformative work, revival. How does it relate to the Bible, the concept of it in the Bible? If you could simplify it for lay people.
Yes, so there's a story when Jesus, and this can be a funny one depending on how you look at it. Jesus goes to a feast, and when he goes there, the wine is finished. And the joke, and nobody should take offense, please, because everybody's looking to jump on everybody these days. But the joke is that how come the wine got finished when Jesus got there?
Right.
But ha ha ha. Anyway, when Jesus got to the feast, his mom comes to him and says, "Hey, the wine is finished, and we don't want this couple who probably they're related to or they knew to be embarrassed. Can you do something about it?" And at this point, Jesus has not performed any miracles. He's just chilling in life. He's
Yeah.
waiting for his
In
time. And
fact,
so
he
he
says
tells his
no,
mom,
doesn't he? He
he
says,
says,
"No, Mom, I'm not ready."
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, he says, my time is not yet
right.
here to do all these things. So let me just enjoy the party. And his mom says no. And so his mom turns to the servants behind her and says, "Whatever he tells you to do, just do it." And then she walks away. So
Yeah.
it's like, whether you decide to do something or not, it's on you, Jesus. And Jesus, just, I can imagine him, with this big sigh saying, "Okay, just fill these, drums with water."
Typical
And so the
teenager.
servants fill, yeah, all the drums with water. And I'm sure they're thinking, if we wanted water, we would have asked for water, but they did it anyway. And that was his first miracle, was he touched the water and it all turned to wine. But this is the kicker, is when they started serving that wine, which was at the end of the party, the party master says to the bride and groom, "Wow, this is the first time that I've seen in a party where the wine at the end of the party is is the best, is much better than the wine at the beginning." Because in the beginning you're sober, so they serve good wine and you can appreciate it, but towards the end they serve whatever is left because you probably can't even recognize what it is. But they said, "No, you served the best wine for last." And that's the concept of the book New Wine, is that no matter what your age is, no matter what you've been through, no matter
No
what
matter
stage
where
of
you are
life
in
you're
your
in.
spiritual journey, also.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, no matter where you are in your spiritual journey, God is still saving the best for last. And there is
yeah.
more that's going to come out of you. He's going to use you to affect even more people. And there's greater transformation coming to your life. So don't give up, and definitely don't settle for status quo, whether spiritually, whether physically in your life. There's more that's coming, and the best really has been saved for last.
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned before, many folks feel dry, burnt out, disconnected. Are there any, Susan, first steps or habits or spiritual disciplines that we can use to prepare ourselves to receive this outpouring?
Yes, one thing that definitely leads to dryness is when we don't have personal connection, number one, with God ourselves, and number two, with His Word. Because His Word, unlike a normal textbook, has life in it. And so when you find yourself away from the Word of God, spiritually, it tends to bring in dryness because the power and the life that is in the Word is not feeding into you. And so the first steps I would always say is just assess, where am I when it comes to connecting with the Word of God? But even before that, where am I when it comes to my personal relationship with God? Because if your personal relationship with God is also like, and I use this as an example sometimes, if you had an experience with a father who was not a good father, for example, you tend to see God that way,
Yeah.
in certain aspects, because we see God as a father, a kind of father. And your experience with earthly fathers can sometimes influence your experience with God. But God is not like any earthly father. He is God, and He created every one of us with a purpose, but He created us also for relationship. And the key is starting with relationship, just sitting down and saying, God, I want to come back to you.
Being
I want to
open.
have a relationship with you. Yeah. And
Yeah.
He's taught us to do that through His Son, Jesus Christ. And the next step from there is open the Bible, and if you need
And
a
just read.
devotion,
Just
if you need
read.
a devotional, yeah, if you need any kind of help understanding, there's so many resources out there, but that's definitely a first step. And even listening to other people who talk about the Bible, other people who preach messages from the Bible. I don't recommend everything on the internet, but there are definitely sound teachers that are out there, and it just sort of stirs you up and gets you slowly back on that
Yeah, it
journey,
definitely stirs
Gabby.
you up. There are often obstacles, and you yourself, Susan, have said, and I want you to elaborate on this quote: "The enemy of achieving greater things in our lives is living in our
Mm,
past glory, traditions, or past
mm.
methods that aren't working." Elaborate on that.
Yeah, so our enemy is our past to start with.
Absolutely.
Because when you keep saying, oh, this is what I've done in the past, this is what I did, this is what I accomplished, that's great. But what are you doing now?
Yeah,
And it's great to hear people talk about what they've done and what they've done. But what you've done is a stepping stone to the greater things that you can do. So just living in the past in that sense is your enemy because you are not pushed to do better, to go further, to do even more. And even within the faith, there are times when some churches can also do the same thing where this is how things have been done, and they keep that strict. We've always done things this way. But I do challenge churches to go back and ask themselves, why do we do this? Why is this part of our service like that?
I think Pope
Why is this
Leo
part of
is
our
trying
service
to
not
do that
moving?
now. Don't you think? I think Pope Leo is on that path.
Yes, 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 absolutely. And I think that he's doing a great job in asking the questions or challenging to say, are we just going to live in status quo? Because that's a killer of what's going on. I mean, if you take the first century and how they lived and how they would have interpreted the Bible, it's very different from today's world. They didn't have cars then, we have cars
Yeah,
now. And if you say you're going to literally take the Bible and say, I need to own horses and cows and goats to call myself a rich
right.
person, that doesn't make
No, it
sense
doesn't
in
make any
today's
sense.
world. And no, it doesn't. And we have to evolve with the culture. Not that I'm saying that we need to neutralize things that are sacred. That's not my point, because things like the Eucharist, taking of communion, and all those are important, and those are sacred traditions. But when we think of the parts that we have added into it, we need to just always ask ourselves in today's culture, especially if we're trying to get the younger ones to be involved. Why do we do certain things that we do? And is there another way we can do it? And we just have to have a certain mindset that we want to accomplish more. We want to reach more people. We want to do better instead of just, well, this is how we've done it, or it's worked in the past. It worked in the past, it might not be working now.
Absolutely. So, what can folks look forward to, Susan, in their lives personally and absolutely professionally? Because I believe that once you're affected personally, it does transcend into all aspects of your life. So, as the recipients of God's new wine and being open to faith, how can people change?
Yeah, I think that having a mindset that I have a destiny to do great things, I think that's a great start. I was created to do great
Yeah.
things. I was born to do much more than what I'm doing now. And when you have your mind set on that, it gives you a certain hope. It doesn't mean that every single day of your life, you're doing wonders and you're accomplishing things. There's going to be pitfalls, there's going to be failures. And I address that in the
Hmm.
book as well, because like you see in the life of a grape, there are times when a grape is crushed, it's pressed, it's led to age, but it's all part of the process because there's wine coming out of it. So you have to have a mindset that I was destined for great things and not settling for less. We like to hear the voice of insecurity speaking loudly. We like to hear the voice of competition and always comparing ourselves. Like if I compare myself to Sister Jane, I mean, Sister Jane is now married and Sister Jane makes, six figures and Sister Jane does this, but your comparison is not to Sister Jane. Your comparison is to where you
Mm,
are and where you need to
yeah.
be. Is your comparison is yourself. You are the measuring rod, and your timeline is the comparison. So, as time is going on, what are you aiming for? What are you trying to achieve? Are you branching out? Because we definitely have it in us to keep moving and to keep doing more. So, the mindset is a big thing to start with.
Susan, the book is really beautifully written, and folks who are listening to your voice, you're very calming and soothing and reassuring, and that's the way the book reads. So, what do you hope that readers take away from New Wine, not just spiritually but also intellectually?
Thank you for the
You're
compliments. That's
welcome.
nice of you, Gabby. Yeah, my greatest hope is that once you read New Wine, and it's not even just for Christians, but my hope is that when you read the book, you feel hope. That's one thing that I wanted to impart was just hope and inspiration, and then a reconnection with God as well. Because you can start in a Christian home or start in some form of religious home, and with time and with experiences, you just put that away. But in putting that away, spiritually, you find yourself just not using the word dry, but you find yourself unfulfilled. But as time goes on, you realize that you start to get new meaning when you reconnect with God,
Yes.
when you reconnect with, His Holy Spirit. And so, New Wine is just a book of hope. I'm trying to just inspire and impart hope for you. Don't give up. There's more to come. There's more that God can use you for and will use you for if you will allow Him. And of course, He's calling and saying, just come. Come as you are. Come to me. I'm ready anytime.
A book of hope. That's wonderful and very accurate. So tell us about your other book, Susan. This isn't your first or last, from what I understand, foray into the writing world. Hold up your other book and share it with us. Tell us a little synopsis of what that's about.
So my other book is Restored Me, and I have a subtitle, but privately please, but
Okay.
people cannot know.
That's
And
catchy.
here, yeah, here I'm really aiming it toward anybody who gives care. And yes, even though it's really for spiritual caregivers, in the book I write, whether you're a kindergarten teacher, whether you're a nursing home aide, whether you're caring for a grandmother or a CEO, when you are somebody who gives care, you find that at some point in your life, you need care yourself. And so the opening chapter is who gives care to the caregiver. And so I really go through the different stages of how you could really become burnt out when you give care to someone and going through the process of restoration.
Yes.
Now, the burnout I talk about is not the usual, well, hey, I'm tired and I'm burnt out, but the one that's deep on the inside where there's so much hurt from the very people you're giving care to, where there's so much pain you're carrying, but you got to put the pain aside for 2 or 3 minutes to give care to somebody else. And that can really drain you on the inside. And you're standing on that stage and you're just powerfully helping, ministering, touching lives. But at the end of the day, you're done. There's nothing on the inside of you.
It's
And
emotional
so I
exhaustion.
go through exhaustion,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
emotionally, mentally, and you feel like there's nothing more for me to give, but you still keep going. And when everyone asks you, how are you doing? Your first answer is, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm doing all right, but you're not doing okay. And Restore Me, but privately, please, is just saying, take a break, take a break. restore yourself. Allow God to just refuel you once again so that you could go back and do the things that you've been called to do, because you can go on for too long when you're running on empty and when you're running on pain and grief and hurt and disillusionment. That's the word I was looking for before. It's when you just feel disillusioned because you've served and given care and served, and you feel like there's no reward. My reward has been the opposite. But there's a time for everything. And there are times when you also just need to say, I'm done. I can't help you at this time. I can't give care at this time. I need to
You
care
need
for
to
me.
restore
That's what
yourself.
restoring is
You
for.
need to restore yourself.
Yes.
So, Susan, you mentioned
Yes.
when we first started chatting that you are working on other books, perhaps from the volumes that you have behind you of journals.
I do. So
What
there's
do
one
we
book
have
that
to look
I'm
forward to?
just starting to. Yes, there's the next one I'm releasing is a book on prayer, and it's going to be. I used to have one title called "The Fire on the Altar," but then I'm thinking of changing it to "Teach Me How to Pray," because I think that's just where people are. Is everybody talks about prayer, everybody says pray, but how do I pray? And so that's really what that book is going to be focused on, and I'm looking forward to it coming out in a couple of months.
Excellent. Oh, we can't wait. We're looking forward to that. So, Susan,
Thank
before
you.
we go, can you share perhaps the most important lessons you've learned so far in your life? Maybe there's one that really stands out spiritually for you.
Yes, I would say that letting go of hurts and letting go of the past is absolutely essential for your emotional health. And whether you're a Christian or you're not a Christian, Christians talk a lot about
Mhm.
forgiveness
Yeah,
and letting things go, but it's not always real, because we speak the words, but when we see the person, we're not able to act out the words that
so
we've
true.
spoken. But when we don't let it go, we are the ones who are eaten up by it. But learning, really being intentional about saying, it is true, this person did this person hurt me. By inside of me, even if you never tell them, inside of you, just reaching out for help, um, that is outside of you, to just forgive them and to let it go in your heart. It doesn't mean that you put yourself back in their space for them to do what they did again, but you need to be able to move forward in a whole and healthy manner from the inside. And you got to just let it go. Let the past go, let the hurts go. And I think it just forms a foundation for you to do well in
I
life.
agree. I always say forgiveness is for yourself, not for the other people. Truly.
Gabby, you nailed that. That's
Yes.
exactly what it is.
Yes. So Susan, lastly, where can our listeners find out about your work, your books, and purchase new wine and your new books to come?
Yes, so all my books are on
Okay.
Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and everywhere else that books are available. And also, I have a podcast where I just touch on some of the concepts that I talk about, called Dr. Susan's Corner. And then my website, susan-agbenoto.com. You can find out about upcoming webinars, books, and so on. So I look forward to connecting with anyone who wants to reach out. Absolutely.
Fantastic. You are busy. Well, this has been a pleasure, Susan. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us again today. It's really been inspiring. And I hope we get to see you at book camp in the spring again. It would be fantastic.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, Gabby. And yes, I look forward to seeing you all again.
Excellent. Thank you, Susan. Have a wonderful day. Join us next podcast when we chat with award-winning children's author, Dr. Sherry Poitier-Liscombe. This is your hostess, Gabby Olzak of the GAB Talks. Until next time, keep on reading.